How we doing? How we doing? It is Schuyler Callihan with another episode of Between the Ears. And yesterday evening, West Virginia lost a receiver to the transfer portal. And that is EJ Horton, who happened to be our biggest wild card of the offseason. We did a video probably about a month or so ago talking about EJ, what he needed to do, his potential, and how he could help maybe take this offense to that next level. And it just never materialized. This is a guy that had minimal production while he was at Marshall. West Virginia looked at his traits, loved his speed, loved his ability to just separate, had tremendous athleticism, and they just thought, we can bring him in, kind of, mold him into the receiver that he needs to become at this level, and he can be productive. And it just never happened. 4 catches, 59 yards this past year for West Virginia. And again, in his 2 seasons with Marshall, where he did get action, he had 16 catches for 245 yards and 2 scores, averaging over 15 yards a catch. So he is obviously somebody that can hurt you deep. But the big issue, at least for me, with EJ is he just didn't have enough clubs in his bag, right? Like he's just he didn't have his pitching wedge, he didn't have a putter, he didn't have his 9 iron, he didn't have all that. All he had was his driver. What I mean by that is the go balls, the 9 routes, whatever you want to call them. He was a vertical threat and pretty much strictly a vertical threat. So if you're a receiver and you're kind of a one-trick pony, and I'm not trying to label EJ as a one-trick pony necessarily, but just from what we've seen, that's all that he was asked to do. And we've heard the coaching staff talk about how he needs to kind of become more of a complete receiver. So again, that's not just trying to throw EJ under the bus here. It's just what we've seen and what we've also heard from the coaches. He's got to take that next step with the intermediate routes, the underneath routes, for him to become more than just a guy that goes and shows up to the golf, outing with his driver. So the timing of the transfer is interesting. I think when and there's no point in waiting, but I'm always a big factor in waiting until the spring game, because we're literally days away, and getting to the spring game is another data point for other coaching staffs around the country to kind of look at and evaluate you on. So now that you don't have that, all they have to go on is just whatever you did in minimal action at West Virginia and also extremely limited action at Marshall. They'll have some practice tape for sure. But I guess every kid's situation is different. Personally, again, I would have probably just bottled this up. If I had a conversation with the coaching staff, I would have said, hey, I'm going to try and ride it out through spring and seed and evaluate then, if that was okay with them. But it didn't make a whole lot of sense for me to not wait until the spring game. At least get that extra data point in your tape. But who knows? So now that EJ is gone, to me, the next guy that needs to kind of make his way up the depth chart here is Jarrell Williams. I believe we've talked about him before, but I'm not 100% sure in regards to his development. But this is year 3 for him. Year 3 is kind of like that kind of that line of demarcation in college football where, if you're not starting to show some signs, it might be time to either settle that into the fact that you're probably not going to make that turn, or you might need to go somewhere else. So for Jarrell, we've heard good things. We really have. We've heard some good things from both Neil, um, Bilal Marshall. Feel like there was another coach that had mentioned him before too, but we've heard some positive things coming out of spring camp with in regards to Jarrell Williams. So that is good news. Now, what does that look like in the spring game? I don't know. What I do know is West Virginia is going to go after another receiver. Maybe two, but probably more than likely one. And is it going to be Keandre Lambert Smith at Penn State? Sure. They'll try, but I don't know if that's necessarily what should be the expectation for the fans. Um, the way I look at it is you kind of want to be a little happily surprised if that's the direction they end up going. But they do need experience. We talked about it a couple of days ago. They need experience at that spot. They need somebody that's proven, that's had production elsewhere, multiple years of production. You can't just rely on Jaden Bray, who's, again, really not a finished product himself, and a bunch of young kids. You just can't. As talented as they are, sophomore slumps are a legitimate thing. And because Rodney Gallagher hasn't played wide receiver full time for more than 12 months, and because Traylon Ray only got a little bit of action, even though it seemed like more, there's going to be still an adjustment period going on for those two in particular. Even Hudson Clement. Defenses also now are not going to be surprised by those three guys. They're going to have tape. They know what their strengths, their weaknesses are. And now it's going to be up to them to counter their adjustments. You have to be able to have somebody on the roster, even if it's like a Devin Carter type player who's had production for multiple years, maybe wasn't a star, but can step in and be that kind of solid, steady guy. Jaden Bray is going to be that, but I think you need another guy. So I don't know what's going to happen there. But here's the other one thing I'm going to say too. And this is not for anybody in particular, but more so just the entire landscape of college athletics. NIL opportunities are something that every student athlete should have. And I've always said this. Like I'm never against a kid getting paid money. I think that was the most ridiculous thing in the world. This should have been taken care of years and years and years ago. But I think there needs to be some transparency, not from school and players or anything like that, but just maybe even from, I don't know, the NCAA. I know we can't count on them to do a damn thing, but somebody's got to get out there and kind of pull in all the data and put it on a spreadsheet and say, look, this is typically what players are getting when you get this type of production. And then this type of production. And then this type of production, and so on and so forth. Because there's this unrealistic figure in a lot of kids' heads around the country. And sometimes that unrealistic figure makes them not only unhappy because they're not going to get close to that or whatever, but they're not going to make the right decision, or they may make a decision just because of the so-called lack of NIL opportunities. Again, this is not singling anybody out. This is just my whole thoughts on this whole deal. There's been guys out there that have been demanding millions of dollars, not at West Virginia, but elsewhere. And were never $1 million type players. There's guys that are coming out of high school demanding 6 figures, 7 figures. You haven't even played a snap in college football yet. You may never translate. That stuff has got to stop. There's got to be some transparency here so that these players understand, like, look, you're not going to get paid unless you produce at a certain level. And then even when you produce, it doesn't mean you're going to automatically make $1 million. Guys in the NFL will say this all the time about it. NIL money doesn't mean a damn thing. All it does is help you get through your college years and maybe a little after. Businesses aren't going to spend millions on millions of dollars on college athletes that are only going to be in their community for at most 4 to 5 years. It's just not going to happen. Beanie Bishop talked about it. NIL, or no, it wasn't Beanie Bishop. It was Aubrey Burks. NIL money runs out. The real money is the NFL money. That's what everyone should be focused on. Because let's be honest here. If you don't perform in college, one, you're not going to get NIL opportunities that are as lucrative as you may believe you should get. And two, you're not going to get to the NFL. That should be the end goal. The little 4-year window of opportunity in college is nice, but if that's the end all be all for you, then you know your chances at the next level. That's got to change. I don't know that it ever will. But anyways, that's going to do it for me here today on Between the Ears. I'm Schuyler Callihan. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel at Mountaineers Now. Give us a thumbs up there as well. And then head on over to our X account, same handle, and you can follow me on X at Callihan_. We'll be back tomorrow over the next 2 days unless some crazy news happens. We're probably going to break down some things to watch for in the spring game. We'll start with offense tomorrow and then go defense on Friday. Actually, let's switch it up. Let's go defense tomorrow, offense on Friday. We'll save the best for last. I'm an offensive guy. So, again, we'll do that. If something does happen, we need to talk about it. We'll do that tomorrow and then pivot with everything on Friday. So thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned. We'll be back tomorrow morning.